You're tuned in to RX Radio.
Hey man, how you doing?
Hi. Yeah, good, man. Podcast intros. I tell you what. You know what gets me is when I listen to other podcasts, I can't deal with like the contrived nature of media. Like, when I remember being a kid and watching the news, Channel 5, ABC, Fox News, Detroit, whatever channel that was on. And just like I could never sit with the sort of the disingenuous delivery of like very editorialized talking.
Mm,
And I find the podcast space is very much turning into that, right? Like marketing, and we market the stuff that we sell, and we don't
right,
take on sponsors very often, but like it's commonplace in podcasts now to have commercial breaks. Right?
right,
No
yeah,
different. This is no different than watching a 21 minute Simpsons episode and 9 minutes of commercials. You'll literally be mid stride about someone talking about some philosophy or some. We take a quick break here to talk about do you have enough money in gold? Is your cash in your mattress? Gold is the gold standard. Like, are you worrying about the Chinese stealing your Bitcoin? Like, it's like, guys, we were on Socrates 7 seconds ago. And it's just like, I don't, our intros are just, us exasperated and tired. And because I can't talk any other way, like that whole, that editorialized
right.
news anchor facade. It's like, miss me with that, dude. Nuts.
Well, the thing is, people like they get to a certain amount of growth and then they sell out, and then like the things they start talking about start to be the things that they're getting paid to talk about, right? It kind of loses the genuineness or the genuine nature of how something started.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't wait to sell out. That'll be sick.
Yeah, once we sell out, I'm out though.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I
You won't see
suppose.
me on the internet. Might be
Yeah.
a dick pic on my Instagram, then I'm out.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
Just trim it down to one picture and
that's
just
it. Yeah, the caption will be, "This is my dick."
picture's worth 1,000 words or four. Yeah, it's crazy. What gets me too is like, I don't know. You think with bigger podcasts that we're not the biggest podcast in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but we've been around. We refuse to die. Uh, that you would be a little bit more self-scrutinizing of the products that you're shilling, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd have a bit more of a personal vetting process. Like there's, I don't know if you've been following like the Athletic Greens situation.
What?
Have you?
I didn't know there's an Athletic Green situation.
I think there's a situation, dog. Like I think the owner has been like found. And look, I love talking out of my ass. It's essentially been 700 hours of me and you talking out of our ass.
Yeah.
But let me fact check this. I do like this new studio situation that I have here where I can hook
Can
you
I
up to my main.
guess if this is a situation like where this is going, and then I could be way off base?
Sure,
But
you do that, and I'm going to look this up.
all right, why don't you look this up, and I'll make up a story for what's happening with Athletic Greens. Um, Athletic Greens was founded purely to traffic children from Indonesia. And now that they have a human trafficking ring from Indonesia into all the major economies in the world, they're branching out into. Uh, that's all I thought through. I didn't know what the second illegal thing
Okay,
they
all right.
was.
So maybe, definitely, maybe,
Okay,
uh, but no, but definitely not. They had a changing of hands in July as president and CEO. And I'm wondering if it'll tell me why. I've heard like whispers from, and I don't know if it's whispers or just I'm just hearing it for the first time. Um, company was valued at 1.2 bill. How insane is that?
that's wild.
That is insanity. I'm
That's
trying to
nuts, dude.
see if they. Yeah, I'm sure there was some sort of transgression, and maybe this is like super insider stuff because I heard this from people um, uh, pretty inside the industry. I
It's,
heard. Look, that's just fucking starting rumors. I love it.
yeah, Diddy owns Athletic Greens.
Diddy owns Athletic Greens. That's hilarious. Um, dude. Yeah. Anyways, I'm pretty long. Let me Google search the guy's name. And my point being is that there is something wrong in the state of Denmark, as they say, and apparently this guy made his money through like shady real estate dealings in like New Zealand or something.
Okay,
I
like
don't know. And again, I could
with
be
some
totally
Christopher
making this
Columbus
stuff
shit, he's
up.
just like stealing land, manifest destiny.
Maybe more like what's his name, Bernie Madoff stuff,
Oh,
Ponzi scheme,
yeah.
athletic. You know what? I gotta maybe go back to the headset mic. I do like. Uh, yeah, let me. You know what? Fuck. Listen to us. Just fucking Ashendon. That's
This
his
is,
name.
this is a look into our collective brain
This is
because the
how it
two of us
works.
make one brain, and this
Yeah,
is what we struggle to get through life as.
I'm trying to see. Resigns amid scrutiny. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah. See, your boy's on to something. You're welcome. AG founder Chris Ashendon resigns amid scrutiny of New Zealand criminal history. Let's go.
All
New
right.
Zealand founder of world leading supplement company has resigned amid a podcast investigation that raised questions of his criminal history and unpaid fines, reparations. There you go.
Damn.
Of his by his now defunct firms. Former Auckland police officer Chris. He was a cop building the company. So has one business acclaimed blah 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 1.2 billion. Guarded blah blah blah. That's wild. So I'm trying to figure out. Ashendon's criminal history emerges as a part of a wide-ranging podcast investigation into the supplement industry lack of science and regulation.
Damn. Some
And
true
this is
crime
what I'm
shit.
getting at. This is what the outsized role of influential influencers such as Joe Rogan and Dr. Andrew Hubian were paid millions to promote the product. Right. So this is where I struggle with like the podcast. You know, we endorse the products that we sell because we back them because we created them. Right. Like we
Yeah.
know the DNA because it's our DNA. It's literally our helical chains of amino acids or whatever the fuck, right? But it's someone like Huberman to shell Athletic Greens uh,
Yeah. No, he and
is
one other person were the exact people I had in mind when I made that statement.
who's the other one? They were
Uh,
naming names here.
he's been on the show, Mike Israetel.
Does
It's
he shill Athletic Greens?
no, but I don't know. I just saw this. I never really followed his stuff, but I saw this clip of him on some other podcast that must have been bigger. And he's basically saying like you can have up to 3 alcoholic drinks per night and it be okay because of the sympathetic down regulation that it provides.
Stop it.
And that's
Stop
my
it.
that's my introduction to his content. So he's just
You're out
forever.
the damn.
I mean,
Wait, hold on. Someone's they're I mean, I don't know him that well, but we had him on the show and we have some
yeah,
mutual friends and we cross paths from time to time.
yeah.
Um, he's certainly, I mean, I'm assuming he's getting flamed for that.
Oh, dude, the comment section was nuts.
Yo,
I'll have to find the
that's
clip.
that's why. You know what? I think I remember seeing something about that. But it's like my thing is when you look at Huberman and you look at, I'm sure Mike's doing well.
Yeah.
His products, I'm sure, are great, and his programs are great. But like, why risk it? You know what I mean? Like, is aviation vodka paying you with a briefcase of cash to say that? Like,
Yeah. I I think there's a dissonance that happens at a certain point. Like people get so full of the positive reinforcement that is the internet that they feel like they know better than science or they can say whatever they want. And it's I mean we've made this point on multiple podcasts, but like what got you to where you are isn't going to get you to where you're going. So I think there's like a fundamental shift in the mindset once people have made it or they're comfortable that they're not necessarily they're not chasing something anymore. They've already obtained it, right? So there's a level of comfort that comes with that where the growth slows, right? And I've seen that with myself in certain areas. Like there was a point where I was very, very hungry. And I was thinking about this because I did a Q&A and someone asked me a question like how to peak someone for weightlifting. And I thought about the time when I had that question as well. And like I was very hungry for knowledge and I would seek it out and like I found all these sources and like I trialed and error on myself and athletes that I was working with, and I really immersed myself in answering that question. And now that I've answered that question, it's not something that I continue to research and look for and like uncover new information. So it's like, in certain things, and that becomes a less applicable question in my day-to-day life over time. So like there will be a time, maybe, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where like that's the only answer I have to that question because I stopped growing and researching and learning about that specific thing. And that answer becomes outdated as new information becomes available, new methods are widely accepted, things like that. So I think that's kind of the premise at which these things happen, is that like, Andrew Huberman wasn't always what Andrew Huberman is now, or same thing with Dr. Mike Israetel. They weren't always the figure that they are now. So they had to earn that. So there's like a hunger and there's like a pursuit in that. And now that they've gotten to a place where I'm sure they've stopped pursuing the things to some degree that got them to where they are, because the place they're at in life is very different, right? They're probably very comfortable in a lot of ways. And there's not much of a continued incentive to uncover these things, but there is some sort of very self-gratifying, evident incentive to say the things that they are saying or push the things that they are pushing, like hence Athletic Greens.
Yeah, you just think with how little it would take to build a team to safeguard you from that, like I'm reading here that I don't know the product from a hole in the wall, but I'm reading here on threads posted a year ago, and I don't know if this has changed. I could probably look it up. That something like Athletic Greens has a proprietary blend to it, which anyone in the supplement space would
Right.
know that that's kind of a cop out of like, all right, we're probably, and the technical term is, pixie dusting, which is like, yeah, we have enough of the supplement. Jesus, this looks like a Chinese food menu. How many fucking ingredients are in this thing? Have you ever seen this?
No, I've probably actively looked away if someone presented it
Holy shit.
to me.
I also love that they ship it in something that looks like you're buying a razor to clip your balls. Like, why is it in such a fucking like ridiculous? It's in like a box, like an iPod. No joke.
I gotta look this up.
Man, this is insanity. I love how this is just turning into trashing and Athletic Greens. Okay. Yeah. So there's like a complex. So an alkaline, nutrient dense, raw superfood complex, which is, it looks like 7.3 grams. But in that, and if I understand nutrition labeling, and I'm not the best at it, but I know the high points. Whenever you're listing ingredients, you have to list them in order of their potency, even if you're not listing their potency. So when
Right.
you're going through the label, we kind of have, your water soluble, you have your vitamins, so you have vitamin E. Like some of the dosages here are 22 micrograms. Like it's very scantily dosed. Let's use a word. Like 26 milligrams of magnesium. Why?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think contains soy. This product premium lecithin, phosphatidylchloride, and inositol content derived from soy. But it's like it's the big part of the label where it's like, all right, we have 9 grams. So 7, 9, you have about 10 grams of a 12-gram serving that is completely unknown to you, the dose of what's actually in it. Right. So let's take the nutrient dense extracts, herbs, and antioxidants. So the alkaline pea protein isolate. Okay. The thing I have with that is when you look at the breakdown, protein is 2 grams. So this is interesting. I know we kind of tangented off as we do, but if you're listening, I want you to really pause for a second and consider this. So when we're looking at the nutrition label of Athletic Greens and we look at the amount of protein per serving, mind you, the serving size is 12 grams. So the amount of protein listed in the 15-gram serving is 2 grams. right? Or sorry, in a 12-gram serving is 2 grams. When I go to the side of the label that has the proprietary blends, which basically tells you the total amount in the blend, but doesn't tell you how these things are broken up, or how the following ingredients, how they're dosed. Again, 12-gram serving, 2 grams of protein. We're now into the proprietary blends of nutrient-dense extracts, herbs, and antioxidants. Alkaline pea protein isolate in a proprietary blend that's they've listed in milligrams, so it sounds good. Why don't you also measure your dick in centimeters so it looks good too? Which is a 2,732 milligrams, which is 2.732 grams. The first ingredient, which means the most potent ingredient in this blend of like, I don't know, there's fucking 20 or 30 things here, is alkaline pea protein isolate. Okay, so there's 2.7 grams in this proprietary blend. We know there's only 2 grams of protein in this entire thing. So there's likely 2 grams of protein powder in this pea isolate. And then everything else, the citrus bioflavonoids extract, artichoke leaf extract, citric acid, rhodiola. And notice that as we list these off, it means there's less and less and less, right? So as you get down to the bottom, vitamin K2, it's like, no, we're already looking at something we're not looking at 2,732 milligrams. We're actually looking at 732 milligrams because the base of the pea protein is likely the 2 grams of protein in the entire product. Right? Like, do people follow along how that works? Like how that sleight of hand is? So by the time you're down to K2, they're Dave Chappelle and just sprinkling some crack K2 on it. And it's like, how you're I don't know. Like I don't really have I don't feel a way about Huberman. The word Huberman doesn't evoke an emotion. It would be like saying, and not good or bad, it would be like saying lamp. I like when if I need a lamp, I turn it on. It's great, but I don't think about it. A lot of people in the industry look at the success that people like that have had, and it evokes some sort of emotional response. I'm agnostic would be a word. I'm genuinely curious how someone of that pedigree and platform could let someone on his team bring this to him without systematically putting up safeguards to protect your reputation.
I think there's a dollar amount where it doesn't fucking matter.
Really?
I think so, man. I mean, like,
I don't know. We've been approached by so many companies.
Yeah.
And we've taken on 2 sponsors in our history. One is Marek Health and one was Vivo Barefoot. We're no longer work with Vivo, but I think it's a great product.
Yeah, I still recommend it to people. Yeah, but I mean, if you look at, I think there's 2 things in this world that get people to sacrifice their values. It's money and it's sex.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a man's ruin tattoo?
No.
It's like a classic. You'd like this, especially with like your drawings being really traditional. You can look it up. Different artists have renditions of man's ruin, and it literally says a man's ruin. And like some artists put like dice and like a Playboy pinup and like a bottle of 3X whiskey or something,
right.
Or some. It's just like whatever your poison is, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I would say that 100%. Like,
I guess
boy, you know what I hate? Diddy had one of the best YouTube videos of all time.
You're going to have to explain that.
Do you not remember, man? He's on the phone with someone and he's like trying to book something. And he's like, yo, can we just like move that guy to next week? And like, so I can get whatever. Do you not? And he hangs it up and he fucking like throws the phone down. The video did not age well because like obviously he's a psycho. But he throws the phone down and he's like, I'm an animal. There's nothing I can't do. And he's like, oh, fuck. Like, again, the worst aging video of all time. And literally looks to some other dude in the office. Is like, what do you need done? I'll get it done. Give it to me. And he's just, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I've never seen it.
Oh, my God. I'll send it to you after. It's art, especially now. But anyways, sorry. Continue.
No, that's all right. I guess there's a third thing, and that's power, which kind of goes along, like money, power, sex. Like, I feel like those are the 3 things that people will sacrifice their values for.
Wild. That's crazy. I mean, I get it 100%. I get it. I think, but the reputation, a good reputation will continuously bring you all of those, in my opinion. Right. And it's, at a certain time in someone's life, it's bag season and they just go for it. Like, what do you think they're pulling? What do you think they pull off AG1 a year? Let me see if I can find it.
Man, Rogan's not going to be cheap, dude. He signed, what was it, 250 he signed with Spotify?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, so you're talking, man, it's got to be 7, maybe even 8 figures.
All right, let's see what the internet's got for us.
AG, if you're listening, you offer us 8 figures, I'll pitch it for every single episode.
Yo, you selling out. Fuck this guy. All right. So according to a post on Reddit 1 month ago, what an interesting part of the internet Reddit is. The latest podcast episode of AG1 has released with an introduction to Huberman's relationship with AG1. The estimates are AG1 is paying Huberman between 20 to 50K a week to do ad reads on the podcast, somewhere in the region of $2 million a year. Rogan is estimated to receive $10 million. Numbers are not precise, but this is a good this is a good estimate based on known influencer marketing rates. The podcast has also revealed an advisor, which I didn't know, he might get compensated for the above ad reads. Wild, dude.
Yo, someone offers you 10 mil a year. Tell me you're not reading that script.
But my thing is, like, if you offer to me now, that'll be a much harder no than if you're already pulling fucking 9 figures. Rogan, yeah. What do you need that for, dog? You know what I mean? Like, now, mind you, there's a trade-off here. Rogan can always hide behind the fact that he's a cage fighting commentator. Right. Yeah. I think Huberman is in a unique position of responsibility, not only to his reputation, but to his profession. Cage fighting commentators need not have a moral scrutiny because they're essentially meme-worthy characters that react to people killing each other in a chain-link fence.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Snoop Dogg's wine brand sponsors the UFC. So like I
love it.
Yeah, so like that's on par. Like, okay, whatever. But right. Yeah, Huberman, I think, should be held to a higher standard than that.
But it's like, and this is my thing. It's like my standards are my standards, and his are clearly his. Yeah. But it's like there's a fiduciary obligation to your like, if I'm Stanford, I'm like, yo, dog, are you for real? Like, can we? And my thing is, there's got to be a play there for this guy, and this is where I think it's like, sure, money talks, power. Man's ruin. I get all of that. Trust me. Even what little money I have now compared to what it's completely cooked my head at some points. But like what I get with him is if I'm, fiscally responsible and I can find a product or have my team find a product that's on the come up, that's legit, that I can walk in and be like, hey, I'm going to take 50%. I'm going to blow this thing to the fucking moon. And now you're printing your own money with a product that's worth backing. The number of opportunities in like a Shark's Tank style lineup. We use that analogy last couple of weeks, and I didn't know what it was, but I looked it up. People waiting to beat down your door for better opportunities, both in reputation and in monetary compensation. Like at a certain point, you just have to see the writing on the wall. That's like, this is not a good look.
Yeah, I think so. But I also think it can be argued the other way. Not that I would argue it this way, but I can see the argument in that what harm are you doing by telling people to do this? Right? Like maybe you're not doing harm, but you're not doing much good. Like I can see the loose morals kind of going towards that. It's not the best option, but it's better than a Budweiser. So
man. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
It gets sticky. It gets, especially when the numbers are that big, man.
Yeah. I don't know. But the numbers they're big to us because they're relative, right? Like 2 racks. I don't know how else he monetizes other than that. Maybe that's his biggest breadwinner of the year. But I know, like Rogan, you got Spotify paying you fucking 200 large. You can take a pass on 10 a year.
Yeah.
But again, Rogan doesn't care because it's whatever, goes to the highest bidder. So I get my morals are my morals, his are his, and I wouldn't dare scrutinize a man without walking a mile in his shoes. If I have, RX turns into the biggest fucking health podcast on the planet, someone comes knocking down our door, I'm going to call old Hubie and be like, yo, dog, That's my bad. That's my bad. On episode 600, that we done fucked up. But like, I just think, again, a different standard. Like, you know, you're talking. There's a hypocrisy to leveraging your scientific acumen and your status at a high, you know, a highly recognized institution, and then, you know, when the check comes in, you're downplaying the prestige and accountability that that institution instills in the rest of the conviction that you carry without the things that you talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. I do also think that there's a very small percentage of the population that will see it that way. I think most
Smart people.
Right. Yes, there are very few
Right.
smart people in this world. Most people are fucking retarded.
Yeah. And I do think it's, and not to go too much on a soapbox, we do have a plan for the episode that's not this. And, you know, we're 20 minutes in and I've just tangented us into 25 minutes. But I do think there's a net positive to it. I just think the net positive for everyone else is greater, right? Is something altruistic if the person doing it also receives something? Or does altruism have to be inherently self-denigrating in order for it to be truly altruistic? Does intent matter?
Yeah.
That's tough. And I think it's contextual. I think it's nuanced. But I do think he's in an interesting position, unlike the Rogans of the world. Or like, I think Williamson does it as well. I think he's also sponsored by AG1. It's like he kind of can rest on this. Well, I was a former club promoter turned podcast turned, you know, he's a half decent orator. I like his show. I've been on his show. Do you scrutinize those three parties differently, knowing that the information about the efficacy of the product, and, you know, say what you want about the past of the owner. I wouldn't even enter that into the framework of this discussion. But do you criticize those three people differently as they all receive monetary funds from what is, you know, fairly widely known to be, at least in the smart community, to be kind of middle of the road? You know, the protein math we just did on that means that your vitamin K1, K2 is like non-existent.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to say, man. I don't think it's too egregious of an offense for me to have a moral stance on it. Like, they're selling multivitamins. That's what they're doing.
Well, what about the alcohol thing? That's an interesting claim.
Oh, yeah.
Here we have
that one's like a huge red flag in my mind. That's like, because you know me, dude. I don't know internet people, so like I don't.
Yeah,
it's not like he's someone I've followed. Like, I've heard the name because he's very popular. I know what RP strength is. I've had people try it. I've heard people get good results on it. I've heard mixed things, whatever. Just like anything that's that widespread and distributed. Prescript, yeah. Like, you're gonna have your opinion. That's fine. I guess you can have your own opinion. But it's just so blatantly objectively wrong that's something that he's lost all credibility before he had a chance to gain it, in my mind. Like, yeah, I'm sure he's put out good information, but I think a big thing in why people kind of gain a following I believe it's predominantly YouTube is where he exists. Why people gain a following in that space is through trust, is through a position of authority, right? So if you talk from a position of authority, but you're saying things that are just blatantly wrong, then there's no credibility, there's no trust. How can people that are supposed to be able to rely on you to sort through the information and decipher what's good, what's bad, what's applicable, what's not, if you're misleading them in that magnitude, in that way, then you have lost all credibility across the board for me. Even the good things that you've said, like, I'm sure there's more of those than there are of these, but that's such an egregious offense at such a point in his career where he's so prominent that you can't make those mistakes. Like that's, I don't know what the motive was or what the lapse of attention was that caused him to say that, but regardless of the point, regardless of the context, that's something that he said on the internet. And, you know, at minimum, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands probably of people have now seen that and heard that. And not everyone with the intention of interpreting that good, bad, or whatever. Some people just with the intention of, oh yeah, like, this guy seems credible, or this podcast is credible, so like, I'm gonna drink 3 drinks a night, and that's what, 21 drinks a week. You're like, that's way too much
alcoholism.
That's alcohol.
100%.
Right. Yeah. It's like, that's not okay. So, I mean, that's my perspective on that one. Like, that's a much more egregious offense than athletic greens. Like, take your bread and get people to take useless multivitamins. Like, okay, like, you might do some good, probably more than harm. Like, I don't think anyone's missing their electric bill to buy athletic greens. Right. Like, people are missing their electric bill and beating their wife drinking a 6-pack a night.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. It's the first. I maybe saw whispers of it, but I didn't, or heard whispers of it, but I didn't see it exactly. I'm gonna dive into that because that is an interesting form of academic self cancellation. Of
Yeah.
like, look, I think Michael Jackson's Thriller album was incredible. Look, Billie Jean comes on. You don't think Billie Jean comes on? What are you doing? You turning it off?
I never listened to Michael Jackson,
None of
man.
man, my mom's is about it. I kind of grew up in like a musical household. Like my family loves music, always got a record on.
Yeah.
And Michael Jackson, and like my mom too. My mom is very easy to offend. Like she's borderline a Karen. Like as much as a Karen you can get in Canada. Like
Yeah.
my mom will just like, oh, Diddy, whatever. It's like, Mom, it has zero bearing on your life. Why are we talking about this? Name me one Diddy song. But the baby oil, like, Mom, shut up. Like, seriously, we love you to death, but shut. But like, she'll be on stuff like that, and I'll call her on her bullshit, and like, Billie Jean comes on, and she's just fucking that. He's
Yeah.
licking butthole. Come on now, Mom.
Yeah.
You got to be better than that. I need consistency here. I need consistency out of you. You're slipping. It's
Yeah.
like, well, but it's like, like academic validity, is that a thing? Like to me, cancel culture is it seems like we're on the other side of it. Trump winning V 2.0 on the election kind of indicated like we don't give a fuck. Like
Grab them all by the pussy now.
right. Yeah, like that was a vote for grabbing him by the pussy. Like you can get away. It seems like who was the first person that I paid attention to? Probably Louis C.K. Did you ever hear the Louis C.K. thing? What he got done for?
Was he the one jerking off?
Well, I mean, I'm sure they were all jerking off, but yes, he was jerking off in the corner, and like,
Yeah.
it seemed like it was hey, whatever you're into, and apparently, and like, he's anyways, whatever Louis did, I'm a big Louis fan. He's since come back, like he's back doing shows and doing tours and like arenas and all that. So it's like, all right, is maybe that part of the process of like, okay, we're no longer on the other side of cancel culture. Something as relatively benign comparatively to the Diddy world or whatever is like the alcohol thing, which you could have your argument about the net impact of someone of that influence endorsing something as potentially harmful as alcohol. But are we thinking that this could potentially be a deliberate play of like, this will get the people going? You know what I mean? Like saying it with, I'm sure there's some, you talked about parasympathetic response or something like that. There's some scientific backing. It's a loose footing to stand on to make a claim of such magnitude. But do you think it's potentially driven from like let's really get the views up on this one?
Short answer, yes. I think that's like the counterculture of the internet is that they're like taking research or information and then taking it out of proportion and making ridiculous claims. Like I think that happens every single day. Like especially when it's associated to selling something. And like the thing you're selling or you're vying for on the internet is people's attention, right? How can I hold someone's attention? How can I, get more views? How can I get them to watch past 7 seconds? And it's by making a ridiculous claim like that. Maybe he backpedals and like, puts it in context later on in that full podcast episode. I'm never going to listen to it, but like that's the part of it that I saw. And it's like, okay. Like even if it's out of context, like it's a little too provocative and it's missing enough context where it is harmful in this case.
Yeah. And but I think the full circle moment on this is you were never going to buy his stuff anyways.
No.
So yeah, I wonder because like I know him to be a smart dude, but it's a curious inquisition because it seems like of late there has been a lot of looking behind the curtain just to see what and who the wizard is, right? Mm-hmm. To turn a phrase, and a lot of people are like kind of through various means showing kind of their true colors, and it's like, oh, it's a fucking rat ship out there. Like there's no honor amongst thieves when it comes to things like that. And again, I think, and unfortunately this is the case, but I do think the scrutiny engine has to be extremely targeted, and we have to factor in, like, I wouldn't fucking, shoot a DM. I wouldn't criticize the Israel, or I wouldn't criticize someone like Chris Williamson to the degree I'd criticize Huberman for having the exact same sponsor. Right. Even if it's their CPMs are probably similar, like cost per 1,000 downloads or whatever it is for whatever sets the rate. And I'm assuming their episodes, like fucking Williamson did an episode with like McConaughey that was like aired in Times Square or some shit. Like that went fucking mega viral.
That's
so I'm
wild.
sure they're actually at a similar level, maybe making similar amount of money. I don't apply similar scrutiny because it's not Dr. Chris Williamson.
Right. I think at the end of the day, this on the internet, it's always going to be about entertainment. And there's going to be people that take different angles towards that. Like maybe one is more, I don't know. What's Williamson? Modern wisdom? Is that his?
Yeah. I think that's what it's
Yeah.
called.
So modern, like more based off of like life experience, like people telling their stories, stuff like that. Like, okay, that's very entertaining. But if you're going to take the health angle, like there may be an implied responsibility with that, but like he's no different than like he's this generation's Dr. Phil is what he is.
Dr. Oz.
What's that?
Dr. Oz.
Who?
Dr. Oz, not Dr. Phil.
Oh, Dr. Oz. My bad. Yeah. Yeah. This is
watch Oprah more, dog. Come on,
man. I haven't been on my daytime TV in a bit, but Dr. Oz, right? Dr. Oz. That's kind of the role that he's taking, and there's going to be doctors or PhDs or people that are much more knowledgeable than him and are going to be held to the standard of the license that gives them the credential that they have to do what they do, which I believe he's a PhD, right? Is that his qualification?
Yeah. Neuroscience with a specialty in like ophthalmology, eyes.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So no one's going to the eye doctor to get nutritional advice, but like that's under the veil of like, okay, you're a licensed healthcare provider. This is the internet, man. It's the Wild West. If you can hold people's attention, that's your value right there.
This is why I have tattoos on my head. Like the same way a frog goes weird colors, like, yo, don't lick me. Like, don't listen to me. Like, don't fucking, are you joking? This is your sign, people. See, even apparently Huberman's tatted too. Apparently his buddy keeps it all hidden.
Yeah, he is.
Like his affinity for proprietary blend supplements that pay him the bag. He likes to keep that shit hidden. I like it out in the open. Like, hey, don't listen to me. I make bad decisions. But yeah,
that's ironic though, because I think that's why people listen to you.
It's like, hey, he looks like a criminal, but he uses 4-syllable words.
Yeah.
Maybe that was my plan all along.
Damn.
The old bait and switch. I need to look really dumb so people are like, oh, he's strung a sentence together. Yeah. Good for him.
No, that's me. I'm the other side of that.
You know what? You got to catch up on the tattoo. We got to get ours still. Maybe in Tampa. I got a girl in Tampa.
Oh shit. All right, cool.
Yeah, if you guys passion, poor taste. If you're ever in Tampa, gold. Electric gold tattoo in Clearwater. It's actually in Clearwater, but she's the fucking. We'll get zapped over there. It's been a couple of days since my last tattoo, so we're in the mood. All right, let's have a hard pivot here at 38 minutes, and I like that kind of stuff. I mean, fuck, Jesus. Sometimes we sit here and we're going to talk about exercise again, but I think, and it's crazy. You bring up the point of commentary, and this week we've done a lot of podcast recording. Mm-hmm. A lot of podcasts feed into the commentary culture, right? Like the news of the day, let's just sit about and talk about it, turn around, it's up the next day. We obviously don't do a ton of it. Like our idea of breaking news is like AG1's CEO stepped down in the summer, like 8 months ago. It's like, oh, this just in here at the news desk at RX Radio. Yeah. You don't want traffic from weather from us or anything, but we'll transition out. As again, I don't care for the commentator culture. I think it makes the armchair expert all of a sudden, and it's a funny analogy, right? Because you're familiar with the famous poem of the Man in the Arena.
Am I?
Are you for the Man in the Arena?
No.
Oh, dude, it's all time. U.S. president. I'm blanking on his name. I could look it up. Man in the Arena is a very it's a poem about it's Theodore Roosevelt. I didn't even have to type it in. I'm pretty sure it's Teddy Roosevelt. It's a poem about like like a guy losing in a boxing match of sorts, and like, well, at least look, he might get the scrutiny, but he's still worthy of all the praise because he had the courage to do the thing, right? So it's kind of like it's great. It's probably one of my favorite. I mean, I guess you would classify it as a poem. It's definitely one of my favorite poems from an American author, and I thought it really interesting that it came from a U.S. president, because obviously a ton of scrutiny, but he had the balls to step up and do it. But it's funny to me in today's day and age that quite literally one of the most famous people on the planet is a guy squarely situated outside the arena. Now, I'll give it to Rogan. It seems like he's, he partakes in the sport recreationally, obviously, past his years of competing competitively in any sort of formalized organization. But it is an ironic metaphor that one of our most famous people is a commentator. But I think he does a good job as that. But the societal values that have risen the role of the commentator to the same level of the man in the arena, like guarantee Rogan makes more than every fighter in the UFC, and it's not even close.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's an odd value system that society tends to have, and promoting the man in the arena. So I don't care for too often just sitting here and being a commentator to social cues. So let's transition here. This might be a longer episode, and actually hopefully provide an ounce of value. And this is a kind of a little bit of I don't want to say clickbaity of sorts, but it is kind of a list topic of like, it might be something you see on an article headline, but exercises that you will do until you're dead.
Yeah.
I think we've run similar concepts like this before, but I'm curious to see if they've evolved. By definition, they shouldn't have evolved, because any previous listed exercise should still be on the list, seeing that we're both still alive. But I'm curious if you have, 3 to 5 exercises that you think, almost regardless of program, regardless of goal, what might change, if any. We haven't changed at all in our exercise goals, really.
Right.
What stays in forever, you think?
Yeah, I think I can think of 5 exercises off the top of my mind that are like kind of gold standard in terms of like, these are things I always want to be able to do, and as long as I can do these proficiently, like I will maintain a high level of functionality. I have the capability to maintain a high level of strength, and I can center my training around these things, improving these things, and I think it will give me continued benefit. So basically the way I split this is there's core, there's upper push, upper pull, lower push, lower pull. So the way that I'd go about it, upper body, you can kind of interchange these. I think I've actually changed my perspective on this as of recently, probably since we've done the last episode. I think previously I've said the pull up. Now I think I've come around to a single arm lat pull down.
Really?
Yes.
You're so good at pull-ups.
Right. Yeah. But the difference here is I think it's more infinitely scalable is the thing. So, and I'm talking like full overhead. This is something you can increase loading, you can decrease, and I think this lends well to being able to perform well in a pull up. I just think that the variability of loading is the thing that pushes this just slightly ahead of the pull up for me. I think the pull up is the expression of function, and this is how you're actually going to train the function of the shoulder. So that's one that may be a new stand-in for one of the older exercises. But I could be convinced either way. Like I could, the equipment needed to do that versus a pull-up could be the thing that set me back to like, just do pull-ups. Like it's not a strong preference, but I do think if I were to choose one or the other, I think I would probably at this point go with the single arm lat pull down.
Interesting. I think you'll be surprised that I have a similar relationship with one of my lower body exercises that we're going to differ on. I'm almost certain of it, but continue. Yeah. So we got single arm lat pull down. You've been, you know what? I think it's the fine Swedish Zin packs that you've been rocking. You've been on a tear lately. I just got to say, big fan of your podcast lately as someone who's on the other side of the podcast.
Hey, thanks,
Hey,
man. I
here's
appreciate
looking
it.
at you, dog.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
you.
Yeah. It's the mixture. We've been over this recently. Caffeine, nicotine, alpha GPC. I'm
There
not
was
on
just an
methamphetamines just yet.
there was an artistry to the caffeine and Zin nicotine coming into focus too, as it like your care. It just came into depth of field. It was like, see, that's the kind of shit you can't. Man, there's some wisdom here on this podcast. So, all right, continue. We got single arm lat pull down in your one spot.
Yeah. With that, I have to. This has been long standing. I think for both of us, upper body push is going to be a dip. Yeah, similar. I think there's like you can draw the parallel with the pull up and the dip versus the single arm lat pull down. I think I recently answered a Q&A on my Instagram where I think I pulled out the dip and I put dumbbell bench press. That would be kind of my close second there. I think I'd still keep the dip ahead. Just because I think a dip is much more attainable for people. And I think the body weight resistance is something that I don't think it's as much of a hang up for people in a dip as it is a pull up. But dumbbell bench press would be my close second there because you are getting a bit of shoulder extension in that. And I also like the open chain nature of it. But I think dip edges that out for me. Lower body, it's going to be a walking lunge and a B stance RDL. And then core for me, I think you could put this, you can kind of scale this up and down, make it in kind of the same family, either like a Roman chair leg raise or like a pull up bar hanging leg raise. I think they're my 5. So
I
to sum
would
it
have
up,
thought squats.
Squats would be preference. Like
Yeah.
squats is like if I'm talking like something I want to do forever, I'd put snatch and squat in there. They're the two that bring me the most enjoyment, and the ones that I want to be able to do at a high level of proficiency forever. But I think in terms of like, I've accepted it, and I saw like my old man go through this when he gave up jujitsu. It's like there's going to be a point where the things that I want to do no longer serve me in terms of like moving well, living well, being healthy, being strong. And I think that like a lunge and a B-Sense RDL give me everything I need in terms of being able to be strong, being able to have a high level of function at the core, the hip, the lower body that outweighs the gratification of being able to squat.
And probably will be the thing that facilitates you able to do that for a longer period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause even right now, like if I don't have a unilateral squat variation, like a split squat or a lunge in my program, like my squat suffers and I get like ridiculous pain and shit when I squat because of it. So it's like, I can't do this without that. So this comes before that.
Yeah. I have a similar. So just to recap yours quick, we had single arm lat pull down.
Yep. We had dip, then we had walking lunge, B-Stance RDL, hanging leg raise.
Okay. All right. Dip, I'll double down where there's room to double down. Dip for sure. And like my criteria and how I'm doing this is things that when I don't do it, everything else goes to shit.
Yes.
So that's like kind of the prerequisite to the lifts that I want to do forever. These are the base units I need to have. So pull-ups and dips out of the gate. I think pull-ups for me, just given my shoulder issues, having basically a full expression of upward rotation of the scap, external rotation, internal rotation of the shoulder. You're going to touch both ends of shoulder function moving from dip to pull up. Pronated grip. I use straps when I do dips just to mitigate, grip as a limiter. I have yet to, although
you said dips or pull-ups?
Pull-ups, sorry. I've yet to, although I feel soon compelled to add weight to the pull-up. It's been a while since I've done weighted pull-ups, but I am a big fan of weighted chins. As a point of context, when I add weighted chins, I regress to a neutral grip, then a narrow pronated, and then a wide pronated. So I don't just make the shift to a wider grip, outside of neutral shoulder width pull up with weights. I go back to a more externally rotated neutral grip pull up, and then I go from there and progress. it's not a for everyone recommendation. But with my pec tear on the right side, it's definitely something I ease into because the strength of my lats, the efficiency of my pull-ups, adding weight, I could add, I don't know, I could probably add 40, 50 pounds to my pull-ups out of the jump and be okay for, decent amount of volume, 1 or 2 sets, 6 to 8 reps. But exposing that internally rotated shoulder with a distraction force with an extra 50 pounds to a shoulder that's missing one of its primary internal rotators, the pec, or at least a large majority of it, like I'm very tentative. I don't think that most people need that recommendation for 2 reasons. If you have all your pec, you're probably good to go. And if you're not at the point where you're adding 50 pounds out of the gate to your weighted pull-ups, probably don't expose yourself to the same level of risk. I just happen to have those 2 compounding factors, which leads me to like, hey, let's bring back to like somewhat of a regressed pattern as I add the load, and then give myself exposure in a neutral position in like a narrower pronated grip, and then back to a wider grip. So I can make multiple progressions of load and also grip width to challenge the movement rather than just increasing load. Because that is a big jump for me with, kind of playing behind the 8 ball of being able to load fairly heavy and then also having a shoulder that's missing a few parts. So pull-ups, dips, they're in there. Single arm dumbbell rows.
Yeah.
For me, like I think those in my world serve as your B stance RDL. They give me a tremendous amount of trunk rotation. Um, and again, I'm kind of talking specifically from my pec tear, seems to be the stem of a lot of problems. Like I have a right quad tear and a right pec tear, both non-full, so they're still partially attached, but cause a tremendous amount of issues, as you could imagine. So one of the things that the pec tear has left me with is like a pretty considerable asymmetry in trunk rotation. Like it's just fucking shredded my ribs into rotation. So I can rotate right shoulder to left side into infinity, but left to right, I struggle. And it's actually to the level of like, you can notice it. When I was getting my back tattooed, my tattoo artist noticed it. Like so much so, like, he's not a fucking biomechanist, but he deals with backs all the time. What the fuck's going on here? Like I have a scoliosis on like my upper T-spine to the right because of my pec tear. So the dumbbell row really helps, keep that rotation bilaterally symmetric as much as it can. So we're in for pull-ups, dips, single arm dumbbell row, overhead tricep extension.
Oh yeah, that's a good
So
one.
an overhead tricep extension for me is like the inverse of the pull-up, in the sense that the pull-up is like guiding my scapula into upward rotation, it's kind of like forcing the action there. But I want to follow suit with that and actually be able to actively move and be in a position where I can challenge that upward rotation, because the dumbbell is obviously going to pull my shoulder down where the pull-up is pulling my shoulder up and out. So I think that for me is one that when I neglect it, elbows get weird, shoulders get weird, presses get, weak. And it's really more of me, it's a point of data collection where it's like, if I go do that, my elbow kind of hurts. Like, oh, I need to spend more time like warming up, or I need to, here's a classic one. I need to take a rest day or 2.
Yeah.
Right. Like my elbows get cranky. Like elbows to me are kind of like, they come into effect with poor sleep, which is oftentimes linked with overstimulus, under recovery, too much training, too much stims, too many days with like, if I don't train, I don't take pre-workout, I might not have caffeine the entire day. Right.
Yeah.
There are times where I wake up, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like I'm kind of just pounding keys all day. I don't need a coffee. So there's a confluence of factors that come together that will signal that I need to take a rest day. And elbow pain is definitely one of them. And I find that mechanically that alarm can sound much sooner if I take that exercise out of the program. Lastly, or maybe last couple, some sort of hinge. And I prefer stiff leg or deficit variations. And I'll tell you why. And I think this is something that's really useful if you deal with patients and clients who have asymmetries in their spine. So my scoliosis is what you would classify as acquired. There are scoliosis that are congenital. Have you ever seen the movie Maggie's Table?
No.
Yo, actually a sick flick.
Yeah.
I don't know what, it's on one of the streaming services. I forget where I watched it. It was based on a true story, and I don't know how much of it's true because I literally laughed out loud when I saw it, because it tells the story of like an American Olympic trial ski jump hopeful, who ended up having like a pretty nasty injury at her trials that would have led her to the Olympics, and that kind of followed her life. And she ended up running illegal poker games all over the United States and making a shit ton of bank. Have you
I
seen
have
it?
seen it. I thought it was someone's game.
Maggie's Game. Sorry.
Niggy's game. Yeah, I have seen
Maggie's
this.
Maggie's Game. Sorry, yeah, I think Maggie's Game. It was all about running illegal poker tables
Yeah,
all across.
yeah,
Anyways, I found it very hilarious. Like literally laughed out loud when I saw at the beginning of the movie that it was like when she was a kid, she had acute onset scoliosis, and they look like Harrington rods, like split her up the back and fuse
brutal.
her into. I haven't looked it up since. Maybe I should in the interest of looking everything up today. But like I laughed so like literally LOL'd at Maggie's the diagnosis of acute onset scoliosis.
Yeah,
Lead Molly's Game. That's what it is.
Molly's
My
game.
bad.
That's what it was.
Molly's Game. Yeah. I'm fucking up. Um, Molly Bloom. And I was laughing so hard. I'm like, what fucking era did this girl grow up in where she's getting Harrington rods up her spine? And who's coming up with the diagnosis of acute onset scoliosis? Like,
Uh,
scoliosis is a very gradual process, as growth in your spine is a fairly gradual process. Severe scoliosis was told she needs spinal surgery. She ended up doing surgery. What was the surgery? I'm assuming, like, I think uh, the surgery for fusing scoliosis straight
yeah,
they're called Harrington rods, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. It's like railroad tracks up your spine.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah,
And the movie kind of depicted it, which is like a wild, yeah, like it's almost medieval. Like you wouldn't put your kid through it knowing what we know. But so the reason that I use a deficit hinge, like a moment of deep deliberate spinal flexion, is there's an orthopedic evaluation. I believe it's called the Adams test, where it's a differentiating diagnosis, and it's not the greatest tool. Obviously, imaging is going to be better, but as you hinge forward, if you have an acquired scoliosis, the flexion of your adjacent vertebra starts to neutralize the presence of that lateral curvature. So for me, having the issues that I have in the asymmetrical rotation of my spine, sure, the single arm row can help left or right, and you pull on rhomboids and use serratus to pull the ribs around a little bit. But if I'm attempting to like really straighten things out, the more I can go into like spinal flexion, the more my erectors and everything is going to kind of make everything level, the more I flex. So to what degree it can be quote unquote corrected, I feel, dude, I'm telling you, I feel so much better if I start my leg sessions. And there's a handful of reasons as to why this is, but if I start my leg sessions with a deficit hinge of some sort, whether it's a deficit dumbbell hinge, whether it's a stiff leg from a deficit, but something loaded in spinal flexion, the first couple reps, man, are just like my whole back just goes like, holy shit. Okay. Now I'm a little bit more centered. Now I'm a little bit more balanced. I can put a bar on my back after that. Right.
I
And
think
now
our
there's
people
obvious.
call that flexion distraction.
Yeah. Yeah. Our people are stupid fucking people. But rather than doing it on some dumb table that costs you 60 grand, I grab a
Grab a
barbell
bar,
and a couple of
man.
plates that cost $17. Sort
Yeah,
it out yourself. So that's one for me that I'll wave in there. So a single arm dumbbell row, some sort of deficit hinge, pull up, dip. Now let me finish off. Lunge. Lunge to me is the go to go, and it's like, why lunge over Bulgarian? Which I it's a fair question to ask, but I think there's something to be said about the coordination piece, right? Other than like lunge to me is my snatch, right? Relative to the complexity and sensory input that
yeah,
I'm going to get in a snatch. Like think of every other bodybuilding bro type exercise, even compare it to a Bulgarian. The sensory demand on that coordination, especially when you start adding weight, especially dumbbells, which are going to kind of exacerbate that deviation of center of mass. That to me is a really good canary down the coal mine
yeah,
of function through the lower extremity, right? We're getting sort of this split load transfer of force into one leg, shift center of mass, everything from your eyeballs to your fucking toenails is getting some sort of stimulus, ton of positional awareness. And, I think as you get good at it, it becomes a great stimulus for muscle hypertrophy, right? I think it's very loadable. Throw a pair of wrist straps on, let your rib cage move around a bit, and just go for a stroll. And I think you can accomplish so much. It's funny because people look at exercises, and the majority of people who are more muscle centric in their focus of their training outcomes will opt for a Bulgarian. And one of the reasons they hate them is because they find it very taxing. They get very winded when they do them, which is no one ever stops to think as to why that is, right? But do lunges and you're going to fuck people up even more. And you could argue, and it's a very easy argument to make, that the movement of the limbs is a relatively arbitrary stimulus to the heart. When we think about the extra muscle contraction required and the amount of load, where is a Bulgarian hard? It's the same point where the fucking lunge is hard, at the bottom. The only difference is you're loading more into one limb. So technically speaking, if the difficulty of the muscle contraction is the thought, or is thought to be the thing that primarily drives the demand of blood, then a Bulgarian should be more taxing than a lunge. Not the case. You do consecutive reps of 12 alternating walking lunges versus your heaviest 12 Bulgarians. Not even close. Your heaviest 12 lunges, you're on the fucking ground. And why is that? It's because the cardiovascular demand to feed the system that is feeding you information about where your body is in space is so understated, right? It's the amount of blood that has to supply sensory nerves and motor nerves is it's a completely different experience. It's you're Bulgarian, be it, greater in that challenge or relative stimulus than a single leg press, pales in comparison to the amount of shit going on from a sensory perspective when you're doing a walking lunge. So for me, from the top, we go dip, pull up, let's go walking lunge, let's go deficit hinge, and single arm dumbbell row. Those are the 5 movements that if I have to keep my shit together, and honestly, sometimes I vary in my program and I prioritize other shit and I get away from those, dude, I'm paying for it. Yeah. To the point now where it's those are what my program are built around.
Yeah. I feel the same way with my 5. And it's something that that's front end work that I put in so that I could focus on things on the back end. Say I'm focusing on squat or snatch or jerk or whatever it is. There has to be a period where I prioritize these things and I become very proficient and I have a probably a greater capacity to do these things from what I've had previously. And then the second I take them out, it's in the interest of reducing fatigue so I can allocate that to higher skill movements or higher fatigue movements. But the clock starts right then. It's right. How long can I go before I have to put these back in, before I run into a roadblock because of injury, or in best case scenario, decreased performance due to lack of stability, lack of positional maintenance, whatever you want to call it. So it's always, these are priorities so that I can do X, Y, and Z, but I can only do X, Y, and Z so long unless I come back to prioritizing these things.
Right. Yeah. It's coming up for air.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I like it. All right. Well, hey, curious about, if you guys out there listening, curious about your top 5, do the thing where you share the podcast and tag us in it and let us know yours. I think it's an episode we'll probably run back just to see how things change. I know we've done it in the past. I know these answers have been different. So appreciate you guys hanging out. If anyone wants to send us a really bullshit shady sponsorship so we can sell out, that'd be great. We sure happily field the conversation.
8 figures, 8-figure deals.
8 figures minimum, 8 figures only. Don't come at me with that cheap shit. Dope. All right. Well, hey guys, appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll see you guys next week.